Well, it's official. We have a rematch of the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers, as last night the Edmonton Oilers eliminated the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Finals, defeating them 6-3 on the road in Game 5. Overall, a pretty brutal showing by the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Finals, and seeing as how this is now the third straight year Dallas has lost in Round 3, the second straight year to the Oilers, I figured I would make a video going over what went wrong for Dallas in this series against Edmonton and talk about where they go from here, as they definitely have a very busy offseason ahead. Let's start by talking about last night's game, specifically what happened in the first period that had everybody on social media talking. The Oilers obviously got off to a very hot start, scoring 2 goals on their first 2 shots of the game, one being a power play goal by Corey Perry, the other being a breakaway goal by Mattias Janmark. This led to Pete DeBoer calling a timeout, and after the timeout was over, Jake Oettinger started to skate back towards the net, but then DeBoer motioned for him to get back to the bench because he wasn't going back in net, as DeBoer elected to pull Jake Oettinger and go with Casey DeSmith for the rest of the game. And listen, I get DeBoer was trying to light a spark under his team, but to me this was a panic move. I think in a game like this, where your back is against the wall and you're facing elimination, you have to ride it out with your franchise goaltender, who for the most part throughout the playoffs was very good. And honestly, when you look at the first 2 goals Edmonton scored on him last night, can you really blame him? One was a power play goal where Corey Perry was left all alone out front, and the second was a Mattias Janmark breakaway that he got thanks to a brutal Dallas Stars line change. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but this turned out to be a pretty brutal decision by Pete DeBoer, as the Dallas Stars would make it 3-0 less than a minute later after Jake Oettinger was pulled. Jason Robertson tried his best to will Dallas back into the game, but in the end, the Oilers' offense proved to be too much to handle. Now, obviously, after the game, Pete DeBoer was asked about his decision to pull Jake Oettinger in the first period, and honestly, his response was very shocking. I feel like this is as close to an NHL head coach completely throwing their goaltender under the bus that you will ever see. As Pete DeBoer said, I don't blame it all on Jake, but the reality is, if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 of 7 games to Edmonton, and we gave up 2 goals on 2 shots in an elimination game. That's a pretty big sample size. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Oettinger had a great series against the Oilers, because he definitely didn't, but the much bigger problem in this series for the Stars was the fact that their offense completely dried up. They were only able to score 5 total goals over the final 4 games of this series, and just 5 total 5-on-5 goals in the entire series. That's just never going to cut it against as prolific of an offensive team as the Edmonton Oilers are, no matter what kind of goaltending you're getting. So to me, those comments made by DeBoer postgame were complete BS. You win as a team, you lose as a team. It kind of sounded like a guy talking who is expecting to be fired. Otherwise, I just don't understand the decision to completely throw your franchise goaltender under the bus like that, especially considering the lack of goal support he got in this series. I also find it kind of ironic that DeBoer said he's lost 6 of 7 games to Edmonton dating back to last year's playoffs. That's a pretty big sample size, when DeBoer has lost in the conference finals in 6 of the last 7 seasons with 3 different teams. That's also a pretty big sample size. So we'll see what ends up happening with that whole situation. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Dallas does decide to move on from Pete DeBoer as head coach, because again, this is now 3 consecutive seasons he has been behind the bench where Dallas has lost in the Western Conference Finals. This Stars team obviously has an insanely talented core, but there's definitely still some holes on this roster that need to be addressed heading into next season. Like I said, they have a very long offseason ahead of them, as they have a lot to do with very little cap flexibility. So let's now shift focus and start to talk about what Dallas's offseason could look like. We will start by looking at their pending free agents. UFAs include captain Jamie Benn, Matt Duchene, who led the team in scoring during the regular season, Evgeny Dadonov, Mikael Granlund, Colin Blackwell, Brendan Smith, and Cody Ceci, and their RFAs include Maverick Bourque and Nils Lundqvist. There's a lot of key names there, and yet Dallas has less than $5 million in projected cap space. There's obviously some key names here, and even if Dallas is able to move a few guys out to clear up some more cap space, there's just no way they're going to be able to bring all of these guys back. When I look at this list, I think the 3 players that Dallas definitely needs to prioritize are Jamie Benn, Matt Duchene, and Maverick Bourque, who I expect to play a much bigger role for the Stars next season. When it comes to Jamie Benn, he's obviously going to be taking a significant pay cut on his next deal. If I had to guess what his next contract is going to look like, I would say something in the range of 1 to 2 years, $3 to $4 million per season. And obviously that right there would eat up the majority of Dallas's cap space, even if Matt Duchene is willing to come back on an identical 1-year, $3 million contract, the same that he's signed with them the last 2 seasons. They'd still need to find a way to move some money out, because that's not even factoring in a Maverick Bourque extension. In terms of who are some players that Dallas could look to move to clear up some cap space, I think there's 4 names that everybody is going to be looking at. 2 obvious ones, Matt Dumba and Ilya Lyubushkin, who were both healthy scratches in Game 5 last night. I think that should tell you everything you need to know about how those signings have turned out for the Stars. Another name is Mason Marchment. He has 1 year left at a cap hit of $4.5 million. Had a very underwhelming postseason. I could see them looking to offload his contract, although he does have a modified no trade clause. And another name I've been seeing a lot of people throw around is Tyler Seguin, who has 2 more years left on his deal at a cap hit of $9.85 million per season. In a perfect world, I'm sure Dallas would like to try and get out from under the final 2 years of that deal, but the reality of the situation is Tyler Seguin has a full no move clause, and I doubt he would be willing to waive it. I think the 2 most realistic options from this list of 4 players are Matt Dumba and Mason Marchment. Matt Dumba is a given, I think, whether it's a buyout or they attach a pick to trade him to a team like San Jose or Chicago. He's not going to be on Dallas next season. Mason Marchment is somebody that I think still has some value, so Dallas definitely wouldn't have to buy him out. If they decide to trade him, I can't imagine the return would be anything significant, but at the very least, he's somebody that I don't think they would have to attach a draft pick or a prospect to just to offload. So if the Stars are able to move at least those 2 guys, referring to Dumba and Marchment, that's over $8 million in cap space that they would free up. On top of the almost $5 million they already have in projected cap space, you'd think that would be more than enough to re-sign the likes of Jamie Benn, Matt Duchene, and Maverick Bourque. But even if they're able to get all those guys signed, you'd think they'd still have to make a couple of depth signings to fill out the bottom 6, unless they're counting on some young guys to come in and contribute in depth roles who are still on ELCs, which would be huge for this team. That all being said, though, I think the biggest thing Dallas needs to address this offseason is the right side of their blue line. Even if they're able to move the Matt Dumba contract, I can't imagine they're going to want to head into next season with the right side of Miro Heiskanen, Ilya Lyubushkin, and Alex Petrovic. There's definitely a clear need there for a top 4 right shot defenseman, which isn't going to come cheap. It really feels like Dallas is going to have to pull off some cap gymnastics this offseason if they're going to want to put a solid supporting cast around this core heading into next season. And the crazy thing about that is it's looking like next offseason Dallas is going to be in even more of a difficult cap situation, as both Jason Robertson and Thomas Harley are going to be restricted free agents. Both of those guys are going to be looking for massive extensions, and even with the cap going up again next offseason, it's going to be difficult for the Stars to make that work. If they can just find a way to keep this core together as best as they possibly can until 2027, they should be fine, as in the summer of 2027 they will be getting a lot of cap relief, with the NHL salary cap set to be as high as $113.5 million, and that is the offseason where Tyler Seguin's contract is off the books. But until then, Dallas definitely finds themselves in a pretty difficult cap situation with Mikko Rantanen's massive extension kicking in. Like I mentioned earlier, I think it would be huge for this team if some young guys can come in and make an impact next season who are either on very cheap deals or still on their ELCs. Players like Christian Kyrou and Antonio Strangis, or even somebody like Emil Hemming, although I feel like he's still probably a few years away from competing for a roster spot. I think that is pretty much everything that I wanted to get to in this video. It is going to be a very fascinating offseason for the Dallas Stars. I'm interested to see how it's all going to play out. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, especially if you're a Dallas fan. Sound off down below in the comments. What are some things you want to see the Stars do this summer to help try and get this team over the hump? And also let me know your thoughts on that whole Pete DeBoer, Jake Ottinger situation. Do you think Pete DeBoer should be back behind the bench next season? Do you agree with his decision to pull Ottinger? Do you not agree with it? Let me know all your thoughts down below. And if you made it all this way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave a like. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does actually help out the videos a ton. And last but not least, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year round, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.